Yeah.
Channel 5 years to come. Yes, M46, it's M46.
Because now I'm the one hosting M46 that in, and I keep on anyone here.
Okay, I'll just go double check. Okay, what is the? Are you able to maybe WhatsApp me the M46 credentials? Because I saw the whole list for the. Okay. Yes, brother, channel 6. Just go to 789 because I need to go upstairs. Yeah, don't check the second console, just check one. Brave, yeah, que estás que me dice Brazil. I'm on channel 7, Brazil.
There will now be an opportunity for silent prayer or meditation. Please be seated.
Recording in progress.
The Secretary will read the order.
Debate on vote number 20, Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities Appropriation Bill.
I now recognize the Honourable Minister of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities to introduce the budget vote. The Honourable Minister.
Honourable House Chairperson, Honourable Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee and members of the Portfolio Committee, Honourable Members of Parliament, Honourable Deputy Minister Steve Litsike, Acting Director General of the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities, and your team, our guests, fellow South Africans. This budget vote is being presented in a year of profound historical and constitutional significance for our nation. South Africa commemorates 70th anniversary since the 1956 Women's March, a defining act of resistance against injustice under the theme, Empowered Women, Empower Nations. 50 years since the 1976 Youth Uprising, when young people reshaped the course of our history, will mark the Golden Jubilee under the theme, Reset at 50, the Future Calls. And as South Africa commemorates 30 years since the adoption of our democratic constitution, the supreme law and expression of our collective aspirations for dignity, equality, accountability, justice, and freedom. These milestones converge at a time when we are engaged in national dialogue, calling on all of us to reflect not only on how far we have come, but on the agency of the work that still lies ahead. As winter announces itself so sharply across our country, we are called to remember the cold morning of the 9th of August 1956, when women, mothers, grandmothers, factory workers, domestic workers, teachers, nurses, and many undocumented women of our country rose with clarity of purpose and marched to the union buildings against a system that sought to regulate their movement, suppress their dignity, and confine their place in society. They declared a truth that still speaks to us today. No nation can claim freedom while its women remain unfree. Wathinta abafazi, wathinta imbokodo. You strike a woman, you strike a rock. We commemorate the women on whose shoulders we stand today. We commit to empower women, to empower nations. 20 years later, on the cold morning of 16 June 1976, the youth of our country rose with the same moral clarity. The generation of C.S. Mashinini, Hector Peterson, Hastings Lovo, Antoinette Sithole, and many others confronted an education system designed not to liberate the mind, but to prepare black children for servitude. Women and young people were not spectators in the making of our democracy. They were activists, organizers, agitators, builders, visionaries, and revolutionaries. Their courage forms part of the same unbroken thread that connects women of 1956, the youth of 1976, and the women who helped shape our constitution. Over the past 32 years of our democracy, we have made important strides. We have built democratic institutions where once there was exclusion. We have expanded access to education, public participation, gender equality, social protection, public health, representation, skills development, opportunities, and the rule of law. We have come a long way, and yet we remain far from where we want to be. But the work of freedom continues, the struggle continues, a luta continua. In a world increasingly marked by intolerance, divisions and disregard for the sovereignty and dignity of nations, South Africa must remain firm in the values that birthed our democracy. It is in this spirit that we table Budget Vote 20 as a statement of the work we have done and the work we'll continue to do to advance the rights, dignity, and inclusion of women, youth, and persons with disabilities. Honorable members, the Medium-Term Development Plan sets out 3 strategic priorities for this administration: driving inclusive growth and job creation, reducing poverty and the high cost of living, and building a capable, ethical, and developmental state. For our department, these priorities require that all women, young people, and persons with disabilities are not treated as an afterthought, but are placed at the center of government planning, budgeting, implementation, and accountability. Against this backdrop, our department's 2026-27 priorities are set to accelerate women's empowerment and GBVF prevention and response, confront youth unemployment and NEET group vulnerability, deepen disability inclusion, institutionalize responsive planning, budgeting, monitoring, evaluation, and auditing, and strengthen coordinated state and societal action from fragmented interventions to measurable impact. To implement this program of action, the department tables a total allocation of 2.2 billion rand for the 2026-27 financial year. Of this allocation, 241 million rand is allocated to the operational work of the department. An amount of 1.2 billion rand is allocated to the National Youth Development Agency to expand youth development, entrepreneurship, employment pathways, skills development, and paid service opportunities. An amount of 111 million rand is allocated to the Commission for Gender Equality, and an amount of 46.5 million rand to the National Council on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide. We'll use these resources to advance this mandate through policy, legislation, advocacy, mainstreaming, monitoring, evaluation, research, coordination, and partnerships across government and society. This is how we give meaning to the struggles we commemorate this year by moving from memory to measurable impact. In this financial year, we'll take forward the promotion of women's rights empowerment and gender equality bill following consultations already undertaken as we work towards presenting the bill to Cabinet. We'll advance the South African Youth Development Bill, which will be submitted to Cabinet as a discussion document, gazetted for public comment, and taken through consultations across all 9 provinces and during this financial year. We'll also continue to work with South African Law Reform Commission on the Disability Rights Bill with the intention of tabling it in Parliament. The department will also advance work towards national strategy against teenage pregnancy, and the Deputy Minister will expand on this work. In this financial year, we will produce research to inform the development of the national strategy on the care work, because no society can claim equality while burden of paid and unpaid care work remains invisible, unsupported, and inequality carried by women. Our task is clear: to move from policy commitments to measurable accountability. Honorable members, no nation can claim freedom while its women remain unsafe, unpaid, unseen, or excluded from the economy. This is the truth that the women of 1956 understood. It is the truth that must continue to guide our work today. Our work on women empowerment is anchored in a simple principle: women's safety, dignity, and economic power cannot be separated. Since the adoption of the National Strategic Plan on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide, government has worked to strengthen a coordinated and multi-sectoral response to GBVF. In this financial year, following the classification of GBVF as a national disaster and the subsequent Cabinet-approved action plan, we will support the establishment of the National Council on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide to lead South Africa's response to GBVF. We'll continue to strengthen monitoring of the NSP across government, cabinet clusters, and sectors. We'll deepen prevention work through the Comprehensive National Prevention Strategy, particularly our flagship project, which is Positive Masculinity, focused on boys, young men, and older men. including targeted interventions in schools, communities, and stakeholders. We'll continue to strengthen the GBVF rapid response teams and support the 100-day challenge model to resolve practical blockages in the justice and support system. We will continue to advance women economic empowerment through programs that open access to markets, finance, procurement, and strategic value chains. Through WECONA, Women in Trade, the Women's Cooperative Financial Inclusion Institution, and interventions in agriculture, mining, oceans and green economies, and manufacturing value chains, we will work with the public and private sector partners to ensure that all women, irrespective of age, are not merely beneficiaries of development, but owners, producers, traders, and leaders in the economy. This will include leveraging the critical mineral strategy to place women and youth at the center of South Africa's mining expansion and industrial plans. Following the signing of the Public Procurement Act, the National Treasury has published the General Public Procurement Regulations for public comments. We encourage our sectors to make inputs into these regulations. It is critically important, we believe. As we commemorate 50 years since the 1976 Youth Uprising under the theme Reset at 50, the Future Calls, through the National Youth Development Agency, we'll place significant resources behind this work. The 1.8 billion rand NYDA allocation aims to expand youth development interventions across the country. With this allocation, the agency will fund at least 2,600 youth-owned SMMEs. It will expand paid service opportunities under the National Youth Service and Presidential Youth Employment Intervention from 40,000 to 100,000 young people. It will provide business development support to 23,500 young people. It will support employment and job placement for over 26,000 young people. It will develop a national youth fund strategy to increase risk capital for youth-owned enterprises, including enterprises owned by young women, young persons with disabilities, LGBTQI+ youth, and other marginalized young people. Chairperson, as we fight to have all public service and private sector posts filled, no young person should be overlooked because of the so-called overqualification with no experience. Young people with qualifications must be given an opportunity to work and gain experience. Moreover, we wish to stress that our call extends to those young people who are even above 35 years. As part of this national commemoration, we look forward to gathering with young people, communities, and honorable members in Soweto tomorrow on the 14th of May to launch the Golden Jubilee, and on the 16th June 2026, where the nation will honor generation of 1976 and recommit every young person to learn, to work, to serve, innovate, lead, and to thrive. Honorable members, a democracy that is inaccessible to persons with disabilities is an incomplete democracy. In the 2026-27 financial year, our work will focus on economic inclusion that remains central to our work. As part of the G20 legacy work, the department will advance work towards a Disability Inclusion Center of Excellence, and the Deputy Minister will also expand on this work. We will also continue to use research, evaluation, and evidence-based tools such as Socioeconomic Empowerment Index to track progress towards real inclusion. The Commission for Gender Equality will use its capacity to conduct research in areas that aim to mainstream gender equality. Honorable Chair, international commitments strengthen the implementation of domestic laws, policies, budgets, services, and accountability. South Africa is currently finalizing its country's 6th CEDAW report for submission to the United Nations by 30 June 2026. We will continue to advance our commitment in the African Union, SADC as interim chair and chair of the Women Empowerment, the Commonwealth, BRICS, and other multilateral platforms. Following South Africa's leadership of the G20 Empowerment of Women Working Group, the department will continue to drive our legacy projects, which are Positive Masculinity, Disability Inclusion Nerve Center, and Financial Inclusion for All Women. Honorable members, I wish to acknowledge the Honorable Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, Ms. Liesel van der Merwe, and the members of the Portfolio Committee for their continuous guidance and support. I thank the Honorable Deputy Minister, Honorable Steve Litsike, and the ministry staff. Our Acting Director General, Ms. Dineo Mako, and a departmental team. The Chairperson, Dr. Sunshine Miende, board members and the CEO and staff of the NYDA, the Chairperson, Advocate Sepanya Mukhale, and board members of the CGE, co-chairpersons of Wekona, Ms. Namhlamniki and Ms. Futi Mtoba, the Disability Rights, Youth and Women's Missionaries, along with our developmental partners for their unwavering support and hard work. This budget vote is part of your work. I therefore commend Budget Vote 20 for the women, youth, and persons with disabilities to this House. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The next speaker is the Honourable Paul Wane.
Thank you, Chairperson, Minister, Deputy Minister, honorable members. Today we reflect on the importance of advancing economic transformation, social justice, women, and strengthening our collective fighting against gender-based violence and femicide. This priority remains the central on building a fair, equal, and exclusive society. The overall budget plays a critical role in driving the socio-economic agenda of government. It is not just a numbers, but a real change in people's life. Through the strategic allocation of resources, we are able to support the economic growth, reduce inequality, empower those who have been historically disadvantaged, especially women and children. A key highlight in increasing allocation to the Commission of Gender Equality. This is an important institution strengthening the safeguarding of women's rights and promote justice. It also plays an oversight role in ensuring that policy and law that protect women are properly implemented. This increase shows a strong commitment to the accountability and protect the human rights. Chairperson, furthermore, the allocation of 46 million to the National Council of Gender-Based Violence demonstrates the government's firm commitment to end the gender-based violence and femicide. This funding will support the implementation of the National Strategic Plan on GBVF, which focuses on the prevention, support for survivors, and ensuring that justice for victims. It is a clear message that violence against women and girls will not be tolerated. In addition, Chairperson, there has been an increase in the budget allocation for the Women Empowerment Program. This aligns with the government policies in socio-economic transformation. The aim is to ensure that women have equal access to opportunities. The resources, skill development, economic participation, empower women in contributing directly to empower women contribute directly to a strong family, community, and economy as a whole. The African National Congress continues to prioritize this focus area as part of its broader commitment to equality and transformation by investing in women's empowerment and strengthen institutions that protect their rights. We are building a society based on dignity, justice, and inequality for all. Together, let us continue to work towards a future free from violence, discrimination, and inequality, where every woman and girl can live safely, reach their full potential. Modulasetulo, tša gore monna ke poo ka lapeng ga di šome ebile ke tšona di gakatšago seya mosadi kgaruru tša bong poo ke ya kgomo ka šakeng ka lapeng ga rena poo tša gore mosadi ke tša eta ke ya tshadi pele di wela ka leopeng di fedile. Freedom Charter e re go be le tekatekanyo marena a mabedi a ka se bakišane borena tekatekanyo le dikgaruru tša bong di ka se o rešane mollo sehleng se sa marega le ge go ka tonya jwang ebile di ka se dule tlase ga moriti o tee ya selemo le ge go ka fiša jwang re le ba ANC re thekga kabotekanyo ye ministera a e beilego mo ka baka la gore e tlo re thuša go lwantšha taba ya dikgaruru tša bong tšeo di le tšwelago pele bao ba ithwešago sefokana sa mogaba ba nagana gore ba a rereša ge ke feleletša modulasetulo ke rata gore ke leboga mopresidente wa Afrika Borwa Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa ge a ile a phatlalatša taba ya dikgaruru tša bong bjale ka tlhabollo goba bjale ka boemedi jwa bosetšhaba re ya go leboga phahla e mošou le matsogo re ya go leboga mopresidente wa Afrika Borwa mmogo re ka kgona ke a leboga modulasetulo.
The next speaker is the Honorable Mchunu.
Sihlalo ohloniphekile malunga ahloniphekile alendlu nabantu bonke baseNingizimu Afrika. Today Umkhonto weSizwe Party rises not only to reject this report, we rise to expose the brutal dishonesty that has become normal in this government called GNU. We speak for millions of South Africans who remain excluded, who remain unemployed, who remain trapped in poverty, and who are still waiting for real change. Asikubeke kucace kube sobala ukuthi le APP ayilethi uguquko kubantu. It repeats a failure, it protects the systems. And the Umkhonto weSizwe Party rejects it completely and unapologetically. Honorable Chairperson, this APP is not a plan to uplift women, youth, and persons with disabilities. It is a plan for the survival of a department that is completely disconnected from impilo yangempela ebuhlungu empilo yabantu. Unyaka nonyaka lo mnyango uletha imibiko egcwele ubukhazikhazi bezethembiso ezifanayo kuvele kube izethembiso ezingamampunge kusengwa ezimithiyo kudlalwa ngabantu behluphekile. Kahle kahle nje le GNU has mastered one thing, producing beautiful documents while society collapses ngaphandle le. Iqiniso lithi lo mnyango uyaqhubeka uyadumaza abantu and the very people it claims to serve, women, youth and persons with disabilities. Abesifazane basahlukunyezwa namhlanje. Young people are drowning in unemployment. Persons with disabilities babewa ngemuva njalo. Poverty is deepening. Hope is disappearing. That is the real state of our nation. This report exposes a department obsessed with administration while the people suffer. Almost half of the budget goes to administration, not to empowerment, not to changing lives, but to offices, meetings, and internal operations. Kuchithwa igidigidi zemali kuma consultants, kuma travel, kuma venue aseyindaweni zabadla izambane ngepondo. Abantu balambile, kodwa imali idliwa ngazo zonke izinto ezingasizi umuntu. Akuyona service delivery le, kodwa sekuphenduke i-feeding scheme yontaba kayikhonjwa. This government has turned suffering into an industry. This report exposes shocking priorities. Millions of South Africans cannot afford even basic food, but this department ikhuluma into yokuthenga luxury VIP vehicles. Imoto zokunethezeka bajabule kube mnandi ngesikhathi abantu behlupheka. Uma kudingakala imali yokusiza abantu sitshelwa ukuthi akukho imali yemsebenzi, akukho imali ye-social relief, akukho imali yabantu abakhubazekile, but suddenly kukhona imali yokuthenga imoto zomntakabani. Ingakho abantu bengasawuthembi lo hulumeni oyibiza ngohulumeni onakekelayo. Kephi khona ukuba kunjalo ngaba anikhathazeki ngeimoto ezintsha, ngabe sinibona nisebenzisa leyo mali yeimoto and buy wheelchairs, hearing aids, nilungisa shelters angekho esimeni sokuhlala abantu abakhubazekile. Nibekezele ngeimoto ezindala nabakhubazekile bayambekezela kuma wheelchairs afaswe ngezingcingo. Nina beningahlulwa yini ukubekezela kusizwe abantu abadingayo. This is a government of comfort for politicians and suffering for citizens. The youth remain another broken promise. Yes, billions are allocated through programs like NYDA and employment initiatives, but much of of it is temporal, project-based, and unsustainable. What happens when the funding stops? What happens to the future of young people then? Young people are not statistics. They are not targets. They are the future of this country, and they are being failed. Abasha, abafuna ama workshop, abafuna ama motivational speeches. They are demanding economic freedom. Honorable Chairperson, the MK party also rejected the report because of the failure on gender-based violence and femicide. Iningizimu Afrika isiphenduka inkundla yempi nodlame olubhekise kwabesifazane. Abesifazane bayafa nsuku zonke, ingane ziyahlukunyezwa, ziyadlwengulwa imihla ngemihla. Idumbu zabantu besifazane itholakala zonke insuku, okubuhlungu ukuthi nobulungiswa bukho. Kuthiwa ke lokhu kuyisimo esiphuthumayo sikazwelonke, kodwa isabelo mali asikhombisa ukuthi isimo siyaphuthuma. Aniboni yini ukuthi isizwe siyaphela nibhekile? Women do not need more discussions. They need protection. They need justice. They need action. Persons with disabilities remain at the margins of this budget. Small allocations, big expectation. That is not inclusion. That is exclusion written in numbers. Schools, transport, economic opportunities remain inaccessible. Kodwa uhulumeni uqhuba ama awareness campaigns. Awareness ngaphandle kwezenzo awasizi ngalutho. Honorable Chairperson, ngiyayibuza nje ukuthi ngabe lo mnyango ungowabantu ngempela noma ungowawo uqobo. Let us be honest. This government is no longer failing accidentally. It is failing systematically. Waste is normalized. Corruption is normalized. Underperformance is normalized. And every year we are expected to approve failure. The MKP party refuses. We refuse to sanitize incompetence. We refuse to defend failure. We refuse to betray the people. This APP is not a roadmap. It is evidence of collapse. The GNU has betrayed women, youth, and persons with disabilities and the poor. The MKP stands for something different. Really industrialization, really empowerment, really accountability, really service delivery, a radical economic transformation. Not endless meetings, not endless travel claims, not endless consultants. Honorable Chairperson, history will judge those who approve failure while the country is burning. The people are no longer fooled. This APP protects systems, not citizens. It funds administration, not transformation. It maintains the status quo. For this reason, the MK party rejects budget vote 20. We rejected the incompetence. We rejected the waste. We rejected the dishonesty. We reject the betrayal of our people. Asihambisani nale budget vote 20 amandla.
The next speaker is the Honorable Mbiko.
Thank you very much, Chair. Honorable Chairperson, esteemed colleagues, today we debate vote 20, a vote that speaks directly to the heart of our democracy. It is about women, youth, and persons with disabilities. That means groups, and also groups who have historically been marginalized, yet whose empowerment is essential for the progress of our nation. This allocation is not just about figures on a spreadsheet. It is about the values we uphold and the future we envision. Women constitute more than half of our population, yet they remain underrepresented in leadership. They face wage gaps and endure gender-based violence. For this precise reason, Vote 20 must prioritize programs that protect women's rights, expand economic opportunities, and ensure equal participation in decision-making. You must consider this. When women have equal access to credit and land ownership, agricultural productivity rises significantly, benefiting entire communities. Investing in women is far cry from charity. It is smart economics. The World Bank has shown that closing gaps could add trillions to global GDP. Beyond economics, it is just about justice. A society that silences women silences half its wisdom, half its creativity, and half its potential. Honorable Chair, South Africa continues to battle one of the highest rates of based gender violence globally. This comes at an exceptional high social and economic cost, while threatening the very fabric of our society. A country that fails to protect its women from violence is not democracy, but a danger zone dressed in a constitution. South African youth are the engine of innovation, yet unemployment rates among them, they remain alarmingly high. As a result, 45.8% is unemployed, and that is almost 1 in 2, and that is a ticking bomb. Imagine the untapped potential. Young people with ideas for renewable energy, digital technology, and creative industries, but no support to bring them to life. Talent in the absence of opportunity is wasted potential. If we fail to invest in young people, we risk losing entire generation to poverty and hopelessness. But if we succeed, we unleash creativity, energy, and resilience that will drive our country forward. Let us remember this. Every rand spent on youth empowerment is an investment in stability, innovation, and long-term prosperity. Too often, persons with disabilities remain excluded from education, employment, and public life. Vote 20 must ensure accessibility in schools, workplaces, and government services. Inclusion is not optional. It is a fundamental constitutional right. By removing barriers, we affirm the dignity and potential of every citizen. Consider the brilliance of Stephen Hawking, who reshaped our understanding of the universe despite his disability. How many more voices of genius are we silencing by failing to provide access? Accessibility is not a favor. It is a fundamental responsibility. When persons with disabilities are included, society gains resilience, diversity, and strength. Colleagues, Vote 20 is more than just numbers on a page. It is a declaration of who we are as a society. Do we stand for opportunity and dignity for all, or do we allow systematic exclusion to persist? I urge this House to support Vote 20 wholeheartedly, because when women rise, when youth are empowered, and when persons with disabilities are included, our democracy is strengthened and our future is secured. Let us be clear, Vote 20 is not about statistics, it is about stories. It's about the young graduates searching for work, the mother striving for safety and dignity, and the child with a disability who dreams of becoming a leader one day. When we pass this vote, we are saying to them, you matter, your voice counts, and your future is ours to protect. History will not remember the size of the budget, but it will remember whether we chose courage over complacency, justice over indifference, and inclusion over exclusion. Let us rise to this moment. Let us affirm that women, youth, and persons with disabilities are not on the margins of our democracy. They are at its very center. Vote 20 is a vote for equality, a vote for opportunity, and above all, a vote for hope. And hope, colleagues, is the most powerful investment we can ever make. The Democratic Alliance supports this budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is the Honourable Mailola.
Dumelang. House Chairperson, the Economic Freedom Fighters rises to reject Budget Vote 20 on women, youth, and persons with disability. 2026 marks the 70th anniversary of the 1956 Women's March, a historic moment when courageous women rose against oppression, passed laws, indignity, and the denial of basic freedom. Chairperson, the women of 1956 did not march so that 70 years later, a democratic government could speak about women's empowerment in ceremonial language while failing to fund initiatives that make women safe, economically independent, and truly equal. They marched for dignity, justice, freedom, and equality that could be felt in the everyday lives of ordinary women. Therefore, when this budget report speaks of a year-long program to commemorate the 70th anniversary of the 1956 Women's March, the EFF asks whether this budget itself honors that legacy. Commemoration without material change, it's not honor. It is an insult to the memory of women who confronted power with courage. Chairperson, our answer is no, because budget reveals the true priorities of government in the clearest possible way. This budget does not represent genuine transformation for women, youth, and persons with disability. It represents bureaucracy, outsourcing, and empty promises, while millions of our people continue to suffer under poverty, unemployment, and exclusion. Out of the 2.24 billion allocated to this department, more than 1.84 billion is transferred to the National Youth Development Agency. The EFF does not oppose proper funding for youth development. What we reject is a budget structure where the department responsible for women, youth, and persons with disability is reduced to a transfer station, while its own capacity to drive transformation remains weak. We must therefore ask, what then is the role of this department? Is it a center of transformation, or has it become a transfer station for public funds? Even within the department's operational budget, the numbers tell a troubling story. Administration receives 130.6 million, which is 45.3% of the operational budget. That is nearly half of the department's operational resource going to administration, while the program meant to serve women, youth, and persons with disability remain thinly spread and under pressure. The EFF rejects this approach because a department responsible for vulnerable and historically excluded groups cannot continue to fund itself better than it funds the people it claims to serve. A budget for women, youth, and persons with disability must be judged by what reaches women, youth, and persons with disability, not by what sustains offices, compliance system, travel meetings, and bureaucracy. Chairperson, the report also shows excessive reliance on consultants and outsourced services. Across the department, consultants are allocated 37.8 million. In Program 2 alone, consultants receive 26.8 million. This is unacceptable. The state cannot build a capable development state while outsourcing its thinking, planning, and implementation. Consultant cannot become a substitute for permanent capacity, political will, and accountability. On women's empowerment, government continue to make speeches while poor black women remain trapped in poverty, violence, and exclusion. This budget betrays the spirit of the 1956 by failing to adequately fund the material condition that will make women safe, economically independent, and truly equal. Chairperson, declaring gender-based violence and femicide a national disaster means nothing without funded, concrete, and measurable intervention. The GBVF response remains too coordinated heavy. It speaks about structures, monitoring, capacitation, and plans, but it does not sufficiently show how victims and survivors will receive direct protection, shelter, psychosocial support, justice, and safety in their communities. Youth unemployment remains a national crisis. Millions of young people remain hopeless while governments celebrate temporary programs that do not create permanent economic freedom. The department's own Rights of Youth program receives only 13.3 million, the smallest operational allocation. This means that while billions are moved through the NYDA, the department itself has very limited capacity to monitor, coordinate, and drive youth development as a national priority. Young people do not need temporary opportunities that disappear with the next budget cycle. They need decent jobs. The youth of South Africa want industrialization. They want land. They want economic ownership. Persons with disability also remain neglected despite the barriers they face in education, employment, transport, infrastructure, healthcare, and public life. The program receives only 19.1 million, which is 6.6% of the department's operational budget. Different year, same script, and it is getting old. The people are tired of budget reports that look like tick box exercises year in and year out, while their lives conditions remain unchanged. Administration remain disproportionately high. Consultants are excessive. GBVF spending is coordinated heavy. Disability and youth programs are thinly funded, and the department still cannot present targets that are consistently
Honourable
smart
Member,
and capable.
your time is now expired. Thank you very much. The next speaker is the Honourable Van der Merwe.
I'm going to be the one standing on the box. Honourable House Chairperson, let me greet you and let me greet the Honourable Minister, our Honourable Deputy Minister. Let me also greet the leadership of our department present, led by our Acting Director General. I greet the Chairperson of the NYDA and her Deputy, as well as representatives of the Commission for Gender Equality. Good morning also to all honourable colleagues and fellow South Africans. I rise on behalf of the IFP this morning to participate in Budget Vote 20, a budget that must embody both hope and urgency. For the rands and cents that we are debating this morning must reach the young person who has lost hope because there are simply no jobs and opportunities. These rands and cents must give a voice to the plight of the disabled child that has been denied his right to basic education. And these rands and cents must be the lifeline for the young girl who cannot afford sanitary products. Chair, as we speak, our mothers, our daughters, our sisters and aunts continue to face a brutal war, one that wages in our streets, in our homes, in our workplaces and places of learning. Gender-based violence cuts through culture and color, and it leaves the same cruel inheritance: shortened lives, dreams deferred, broken families, and generational trauma. It is against this grim reality that I express my deep dismay that in the next 3 weeks, as Parliament debates the various budget votes, nothing meaningful will be set aside for the implementation of the National Strategic Plan on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide, or the declaration of gender-based violence and femicide as a national disaster. In fact, the classification remains unfunded, and there's nothing to show that in the budget review that departments have set aside any additional funds. And let me say clearly today that declaring a national disaster without dedicated funds is not a plan, it is a betrayal. But even with that said, the IFP believes that every cent in this Budget Vote 20 must be a promise kept. A promise to confront gender-based violence and femicide with the urgency that it requires. A promise to secure sanitary dignity for all Indigenous schoolgirls. And a promise to build real pathways to work and education for persons with disabilities and our youth. In my few minutes that I have this morning, I will not be able to touch on all the budget recommendations that we have put forward as a committee, but I want to say to the NYDA this morning that you do not have the luxury for internal discord. You do not have the luxury to be in the media for all the wrong reasons, and you do not have the luxury of failure. I want to repeat that. You do not have the luxury of failure. You have been given a once-in-a-generation opportunity to restore the hope of our young people, and we expect you to do just that. So we expect measurable results from you. No lavish offices, no excessive spend on international travel, and no wasting of millions on once-off events when our young people hustle for taxi money and hustle for a few cents to be able to access data so that they can look for opportunities. We want you to be able to expand your reach, as we've said to you on numerous occasions. And we want you to deliver opportunities that will change lives. To the Commission for Gender Equality, we want to say that you need to raise your profile where it matters. Move beyond reports to visible presence. You need a national toll-free line, a WhatsApp reporting platform, and smart, sustained use of free media opportunities to showcase your interventions. To our very own department, we want to say that you must ensure that every activity aligns with your mandate and your outcomes must be measurable. You must fast-track now the outstanding legislation, Honourable Minister, as you've promised us, because these bills now are very urgent. We also need to review the sanitary dignity program because it's not working, and we need to end the fragmentation in order to strengthen delivery. And Minister, we do know you don't have any special powers to hold anybody to account, but we need to find a way to hold to account departments that continue to fail women, youth, and persons with disabilities. Chairperson, I want to thank all the members of our portfolio committee and our support team. The IFP will support this budget, but we also know that you need more rands and cents. And therefore, we want to say to you that a fight for a decent budget for this department must be matched by a relentless
Honourable Member, your
daily
time is now
pursuit
expired.
to do better, to do more for women and youth and persons with disabilities. I thank you.
The next speaker is the Honourable Peterson.
Thank you, House Chair, Honourable Members, Minister, Deputy Minister, and members of the public. On behalf of the Patriotic Alliance, I rise today in support of Vote 20. Honourable House Chair, South Africa has declared gender-based violence and femicide a national disaster, yet women and children continue to live in fear every single day. We continue to see heartbreaking cases of abuse, rape, disappearances, and murder, while many cases remain unresolved and families continue waiting for justice. We cannot speak about women empowerment while women are unsafe in their own homes and communities. We therefore support stronger funding towards victim support services, shelters, community safety initiatives, and faster intervention mechanisms to protect vulnerable women and children. Honourable members, the Patriotic Alliance also supports programs aimed at empowering women economically. Women continue to face barriers in employment, leadership, and entrepreneurship, particularly in poor and working class communities. This budget must ensure that opportunities reach ordinary women on the ground. Young people are the majority of our population, yet many remain unemployed, hopeless, and vulnerable to crime, drugs, and gangsterism. The Patriotic Alliance supports increased investment in skills development, entrepreneurship programs, and internships and job creation initiatives that give young people a real chance at building a successful future. Honourable House Chair, we further support efforts aimed at improving the lives of persons with disabilities. Accessibility, inclusion, and equal opportunity are constitutional rights, not privileges. More must be done to ensure that persons with disabilities are fully included in education, employment, and public life. Vote 20 is about building an inclusive South Africa, a South Africa where women are protected, where young people are empowered, and where persons with disabilities are treated with dignity and equality. For these reasons, the Patriotic Alliance supports the budget vote. In conclusion, we have seen way too many dreams die prematurely. We have seen way too many candles blown out, and we have witnessed how tables can be turned when all we needed as young people of this country is a chance. Thank you.
The next speaker is the Honourable Van Staden.
Thank you, House Chairperson. House Chairperson, I stand here before you this morning as a husband and a father. As the father of a very young child, I stand before this House, this Portfolio Committee, and the Minister with a sincere appeal. Please prioritize the urgent issue of child and human trafficking. If work is already underway, it is commendable, but far more must be done to confront and prevent these horrific crimes. I urge you to take decisive leadership by strengthening collaboration across portfolio committees and relevant departments, ensuring this crisis receives the focused, coordinated response it demands. I also wish to place on record my willingness to make myself available to assist in any way possible in addressing this critical matter. In February of this year, the committee concluded its interviews with candidates for appointment to the National Council of Gender-Based Violence and Femicide. While efforts to combat gender-based violence are essential, the Council must not operate solely in a reactive capacity. It should be firmly geared towards proactive prevention, addressing root causes, and implementing measures that stop violence before it occurs. Die VF+ ondersteun vroueregte, maar dit kan in praktyk slegs verwesenlik word deur bemagtiging van vroue deur opleiding en die skep van geleenthede. Die meeste slagoffers van verkrachting, molestering en huishoudelike geweld is weens intimidasie te bang om hierdie voorvalle by die Suid-Afrikaanse polisiedienste aan te meld. Maar aan die ander kant sit ons met 'n groot probleem waar die SAPD se hantering van hierdie sake ver te kort skiet en word slagoffers nie beskerm nie. Ons strafregstelsel laat ook baie slagoffers in die steek, veral as dit kom by die wyse waarop van slagoffers verwag word om in 'n oop hof te getuig. Die swak hantering van sake, die leemtes wanneer dit kom by die oordrag van dossiere tussen die Suid-Afrikaanse Polisiediens en die Nasionale Vervolgingsgesag, onvolledigheid van ondersoeke, bewysstukke en getuienis, wat nie met die nodige sorg hanteer word nie, is vervolgings in hierdie sake dikwels nie suksesvol nie. Dit veroorsaak dat daar 'n lae aanmeldingssyfer van hierdie oortredings is. Because of these systemic failures, many sexual offenders remain at large, while gender-based violence has become deeply entrenched in our society. Our parole system requires urgent reform, particularly to ensure that the rights, safety, and dignity of victims are placed at its center. The Freedom Front Plus will continue to support all measures that strengthen the protection of women, children, and other vulnerable members of society against abuse, violence, and exploitation. Voorsitter, hierdie is 'n fenomeen, as ek dit so kan noem, wat besig is om soos 'n kanker in ons samelewing en gemeenskappe te versprei. Maar elke man wat die hoof van 'n huishouding het ook die verantwoordelikheid om daardie gesonde waardes van 'n samelewing waar dit 'n samelewing behoort te bestaan, in te bring in die huishouding en in die kinders se opvoeding. En ek doen 'n beroep op alle mans in Suid-Afrika wat die hoofde van hulle huis is en hulle gesinne is en hulle families is, om hierdie waardes te begin toepas. Ek dank u, voorsitter.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is the Honourable Letlape.
Thank you, House Chair, the Minister and the Deputy Minister, the Chair of the Committee, honourable members, fellow South Africans. It's ironic that on my way to Parliament, on the N1, I got a call from my wife. And she says, our 6.5-year-old grandson in Ektebeg was crying at school. And the teachers called. She's crying because she wants her aunt, our daughter, who passed nearly 2 years ago. And I ask myself, is that a message for me to say something different? So that has changed my address today. I heard the Minister talk about the duties of the Council for Gender Equality, to use its resources to conduct research. And I ask myself, what budget has this Parliament given them to do the research? I'm a medical doctor, and if you want research, you go to set up a research unit, you got to fund it fully, you got to have ethics committees, and there's none of that that has been given to the Commission for Gender Equality. Are we serious about what it is supposed to do? Instead of funding it, we've created a parallel structure called the National Council on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide. When I look at page 97 of the Constitution on functions of Commission for Gender Equality, I see a serious overlap in terms of what the Council is meant to do. And I wonder whether as South Africans we're serious about promoting gender equality. And I see no seriousness. I see smoke screens. Every time we have a crisis in this country, nobody asks who was responsible. What is the structure that was supposed to do? What was it supposed to do? What did it not do? We set up a new structure. And we all complain about insufficiency of funds. But we always have money to set up structures. But we have no money to make them functional. We have no money to give them to be able to operate. When you look at the genesis of what happened to my daughter, it's a basis of gender equality. Our young men and old men are raised to disrespect women. It is in the foundations of our society. And there's nothing that we're doing to change that foundation. We still let our young women, when they elect to get married, to be husband and wife. We talk about gender equality, but we have not even equalized the vow of marriage so that it becomes a partnership and not a husband and wife, where men see women as assets and property that needs to bow to them. That's why my daughter died. Because if the foundations of this society were on equality, that young man would have went his own way and sent her back to us. But he didn't, because of what society tells him. We support this budget, but I support it with a heavy heart. And I will challenge the formation of the National Council on Gender-Based Violence vis-à-vis the Commission for Gender Equality. There's a constitutional structure that we need to support fully and not create other structures as a diversion for being responsible citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is the Honourable Deputy Minister of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities.
Honorable House Chair, honorable members, let me greet Honorable Minister, Honorable Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee and members, the Chairperson of NYDA and Deputy, fellow South Africans in your diversities. I stand to support Budget Vote 20, not merely as a statement of departmental expenditure, but to account on how we are progressively moving the promises of our Constitution from paper to practice for every South African across all areas of human endeavor. The Minister has laid out the policy direction and legislative program that will guide the budget vote. My task today is not to reinstate that vision, but to journey with you into the deeper terrain, into the spaces where policy meets lived experiences, where budgets become tools of belonging, and where the promise of our Constitution is either realized or deferred. 30 years ago, South Africans chose a constitution that is not only a legal chapter, but it's a living document of hope born on the intersections of race, class, gender, geography, and culture. Our Constitution promises that equality that has been won hard by the African National Congress and other progressive partners will be felt both in law and in life. Potso e nang pele ga rona ke gore tsholofetso eo re fitlhetsego batho ba rona ba sireletsegile ba tlhokang yona tshireletso eo thata. Honorable House Chair,
South Africa's disability rights architecture is robust. I'm not sure whether a member from MK is alive with details of today. We have ratified the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability, and we have domesticated that. And it's through our white paper on the rights of persons with disabilities. A disability rights bill is underway, consolidation by the South African Law Reform Commission that we are working with. And we have this commitment to table it before the end of this administration. Yes, 3.3 million South Africans, about 7.5% of our population, are persons with disability, while 1 to 1.4% of the workforce is made up of persons with disability. Representation at top management hovers around 1%. These numbers show us that inclusion remains aspirational rather than operational. That exclusion is even more severe into the intersection of disability, race, youth, gender, geography, and sexual orientation. In the current financial year, we are accelerating the implementation of the 3% national employment target for persons with disability, alongside that 7% public service target of 2030, treating these as not just a compliance indicator, but instrument of economic inclusion. We are also broadening economic participation through scaling opportunities in public service employment, private sector inclusion, and entrepreneurship. What MK must understand is that we are not a service department. We look into all line departments and partners to deliver those opportunities, including promotion of inclusion procurement policies to open market access, strengthening skills development and workplace readiness program, particularly for post-school youth with disabilities, expanding supported employment enterprises while encouraging public and private sector procurement to sustain these initiatives. Agbare voorsitter. En sluiting moet verder sterk as deelname aan die ekonomie tot deelname aan besluiten. For the first time, a representation framework is being developed to systematically review appointments to state-owned enterprises, including the board's strategic position processed through cabinet, so that women, youth, persons with disabilities, LGBTI persons, and other vulnerable groups are intentionally and measurably represented at the table. We are building a society that lives by the principle, nothing about us without us. That is why we are institutionalizing structured engagement with organizations of persons with disability, co-designing policies with them, and expanding a national program of advocacy, awareness, and social transformation. We are mainstreaming disability across government by leading the establishment of a disability nerve center of excellence to address fragmented data and accountability challenges, because without data, there cannot be any planning, no planning for implementation, and without implementation, inclusion remains a promise deferred. So indeed, Honorable Letlape, data is around investment. Evidence is generated through investment. Modula Stulo, one to eight Rotterdam, as disability inclusion exposes the limitation of implementation. We are correct to assert inclusive reproductive justice reveals the depth of inequality that shapes the lives of young people, particularly young women and gender diverse persons. Underage and adolescent pregnancies sit at the heart of development. It determines whether a young person remains in school, is pushed out, or whether she enters the economy with agency or constraint. It shapes the lived realities of girls whose access to affirming and non-discriminatory health care remains uneven. We cannot be complacent while over 130,000 girls give birth in South Africa, while pregnancies recorded amongst girls are young as 10. This is the manifestation of poverty, gender inequality, gender-based violence, and systematic failure in protection and prevention. For girls with disabilities, these risks are intensified, with moments like this demands not a fragmented approach, but a response, one that is systematic. In this coming year, We are developing a multi-sectoral strategy to prevent and respond to underage and adolescent pregnancy. We have coordinated all departments that are responsible to do this, anchored in the whole of society approach that brings together education, health, justice, social development, and community leadership to drive measurable reduction in adolescent pregnancy. Initiate a process to harness and harmonize our laws governing children's reproductive rights. Indeed, Honorable Member, the children's rights are embedded while it is the responsibility of Department of Social Development. But one of the most important things we must address is that age of consent legislation and access to sexual reproductive health services, including contraceptive, termination of pregnancy, while tackling an ongoing scourge of child marriage. We have to also going to look into the deepening community engagement through, of course, the roadshow that we will be driving, undertaking, and working together with the University of Pretoria, the Obstetric and Gynecology College, including the Steve Biko Academic Hospital, that is led by the incredible scientist, amazing Professor Zozo Nene, to bridge the gap between policy and lived reality. I want to say the good news, honorable members, is that we are seeing a decline, and hence we are adamant that inclusive reproductive justice cannot be delivered only in clinics, but in our homes, in our schools, in our communities, as we are reminded. Honorable members, from policy to become a reality, accountability must be the bridge that connects the two. Our constitution did not establish institutions like gender equality to observe inequality from a distance, as we've heard. It is there to receive the budget, and this is why there is a allocation our department is appropriating. But its operation independently to monitor, investigate, educate, and intervene where rights are undermined. Accountability must be visible and measurable and enforced in that case. So critical areas that speaks to the legislation, the 22 legislation policy submission gaps, deal with the issues of private and public sector, reinforce accountability, but also expand public education. Those are some of the priorities we have outlined in this year's budget, and also including providing gender and development training across both private and public sector. These interventions, alongside those by the department, are steadily moving accountability beyond reporting. One of the key things that is quite key that we must take into consideration is the GBV response. Yes, indeed. This is a recommendation from CEDAW that was complied with by Parliament, and as government, we should also comply with. I want to just lastly raise the issue, House Chair, of inequality, particularly as it relates to LGBTI people. We must address the issues of inequality, anti-rights, anti-gender, and ensure that LGBTI are included, as well as ensuring that the work NYDA has been put forward by the Minister,
Deputy Minister,
is prioritized.
your time is now
and
expired.
we have to understand that NYDA remains a critical structure that we must all support in this financial year. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. I must inform the Min-Plenary that the Honourable Deputy Minister has requested to be excused immediately after the speech to attend to an important exam that must be written at 11:30 this morning. We want to thank you, Honourable Deputy Minister, for prioritizing the work of Parliament and to come and to present your input into this Min-Plenary, and we wish you well. Is there a member from the ACDP that will participate? We have not received names. The ACDP? There's a point of order. Just press the other button, Honourable Member.
No, Honourable Chair, it's not a point of order. We are in a cold room. It's freezing.
Okay, we'll ask the support staff to attend to the room temperature. The UDM? Rice? Bausa? ATM? Al-Jama? NCC? The PAC? UAT? Good? The Honorable Kanyile.
House Chair, honorable members, Chairperson, oversight means very little if you fail to confront the reality facing millions of young South Africans today. Young people are sitting at home without jobs, without opportunities, without access to economic participation, and increasingly without hope. Recent stats has once again indicated the rise in the rates of unemployment, and once again, young people are hardest hit, with stats sitting at 45.8%. At a time when youth unemployment remains one of the greatest threats to our democracy and economic stability, every cent allocated toward youth development must be spent responsibly, strategically, and with measurable impact. Chairperson, the NYDA continues to receive significant public funding precisely because it carries an important mandate. For the year 25-26, NYDA has been allocated 1.8 billion rands. These funds are not meant to sustain bureaucracy, luxury, or public relations exercise. They are meant to create opportunities for young people. The allocation to the NYDA must primarily benefit young people directly through entrepreneurship support, skills development, rural youth development, proper fitment and dispatching of mobile trucks, and meaningful partnership and open economic opportunities. Funds should not be diverted towards unnecessary extravagance while young people remain unemployed and excluded from the economy. The DA cautioned the NYDA against hosting flamboyant events that consume large portions of the budget while delivering little measurable impact to the lives of ordinary young people. Young South Africans do not need expensive stages, luxury venues, branded photo opportunities, and extravagant gatherings designed for appearances. They need sustainable interventions that change their lives. Every event hosted by the NYDA must be outcome-driven, cost-effective, and linked to tangible benefits for young people. Parliament must begin asking harder questions about value for money. Chairperson, the committee has also correctly raised concerns regarding the international travel. The people of South Africa expect accountability when public funds are used for overseas trips. International engagements cannot become glorified study tours with little return on investment for the country. In this regard, serious questions must be asked regarding the recent trip undertaken by the NYDA to New York City. What informed the decision by the NYDA executives to visit the New York City, specifically as a benchmark for youth development and employment interventions? Recent unemployment statistics from the New York itself indicate that youth unemployment and economic pressures among young people continue to rise even in that city. Their 2024 stats indicate that young black workers face the highest unemployment rate that stands at 23.8%, which increased from 3.6% from 2019. Therefore, Parliament is entitled to ask what practical lessons were brought back to South Africa that can genuinely address our own youth unemployment crisis. Chairperson, South Africans are not opposed to international cooperation or learning from global experiences. There is value in strategic international partnerships when they produce tangible outcomes and skills transfer. But overseas travel must never become an end in itself. Every international trip undertaken by the NYDA department or entities must result in implementable solutions, practical partnerships, investment opportunities, or skill transfer. If there is no measurable impact, then such expenditure cannot be justified while millions of young people remain unemployed. Chairperson, we support the recommendation that all international travel undertaken by the NYDA be properly planned, that delegations must remain small, and that pre- and post-travel reports be submitted to Parliament. South Africans deserve transparency. Chairperson, we also welcome the recommendations relating to vacancies, consultants, procurement, monitoring and evaluation, and disability inclusion within the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities. Government institutions cannot effectively serve vulnerable communities while operating with weak oversight systems, high vacancy rates, and over-reliance on consultants. Capacity must be built internally, and departments must become more efficient and responsive. The recommendations on gender-based violence and femicide are particularly important. South Africa continues to face devastating levels of violence against women and children. Monitoring, prevention, awareness, and coordination across government must therefore become stronger and more effective. We will continue to monitor progress to address issues of teenage pregnancy and statutory rape, while we acknowledge the decrease reported of teenage pregnancies in the Eastern Cape. We cannot turn a blind eye to the surge numbers in the KZN, and various stakeholders within government institutions must ensure a collaborative effort to bring perpetrators to book. Chairperson, Democratic Alliance will continue to support oversight that prioritizes outcomes over optics and delivery over extravagance. I thank you.
The next speaker is Honorable Choki Adonis.
Okay, there we go. The mic. Thank you very much. I greet honorable members, the executives, officials, and representatives from our entities, the deputy chairperson and the chairperson who are present with us, and fellow South Africans. I stand before you on behalf of the African National Congress on Vote 20. As we support Vote 20, we must indicate as well that we have identified a deficiency that seeks to say we must look at the increased budget allocation for the Department of Women, Youth, and Persons with Disabilities. The reality that South Africans and millions of South Africans do not know is that this department is underfunded. This department, after disseminating its resources to its entities and its institutions that fall under it, is left with less than 300 million. Now, we call upon Treasury to look onto this, and it must be rectified. The mandate of this department is broad and it's huge. The mandate of overseeing the legislative implementation of policies and legislations and empowering the most vulnerable in society. Women, youth, and persons with disabilities constitute the majority of the South African citizens. Now, I must indicate that we have seen significant progress through the government led by the African National Congress. Since our democracy, we have seen the domestication and ratification of the White Paper on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. We have seen legislations and policies that seek to empower persons with disabilities throughout and economic opportunities. We have seen regulations and legislative frameworks that seek to empower women. We have seen agencies and institutions and funding mechanisms that seek to say young people shall not be left behind, but must be economically and socially empowered. But with this, I must say, we need to do more. Minister, as the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee said, we must find mechanisms in which this department, your office, has the ability to hold all spheres of government accountable in implementing the legislative and policy frameworks that are adopted by the National Assembly. It cannot be that you've got legislations that are being passed, but yet there is resistance on implementation. This department's mandate is greater than what we understand. It is not just administratively. It has the responsibility to monitor and evaluate. We also call upon Treasury to centralize budgets that are allocated to women, youth, and persons with disabilities across all spheres of government to this department. Equal to that, the National Youth Development Agency, with the resources that they have allocated to them and the mandate that they are tasked with, still requires a greater budget. And colleagues, honorable members, South Africans, we will say no, the budget is more than enough. It is not enough for the mandate they need to carry out. There are millions of South Africans who are unemployed, millions of young South Africans who are left behind from economic opportunities. And this agency must be the driver of ensuring that it's able to connect young people to economic and social opportunities. On the rights of persons with disabilities, we call upon the department to fast-track the bill on the rights of persons with disabilities. We must ensure that there are levels of accountability and consequence management must be put in place. We must have budgets that are ring-fenced. We must ensure on women's mainstreaming. We must address the issues of gender-based violence. As part of the contributing factors is lack of economic empowerment, social discourse, a disconnect from what women's economic transformation should be. Now, this speaks towards a moral degeneration that is taking place, and it must be addressed. Millions and millions of South African women right now are caregivers. We speak about unpaid care work. What are we doing to ensure through the Department of Labor and also through the Department of Higher Education to train those who are caregivers? We must motivate for this. Now, as I've indicated, Tumkonto, MKP, I think when you were delivering in your debate, you might have not been well informed in terms of what deliberations took place in portfolio committees, because we know the attendance sometimes bunny change time and time again. Now you must understand, and reading is a skill. You must familiarize yourselves with the realities that are there. You must know the responsibility of this department. You must understand the roles of various entities and institutions of government. You spoke about wheelchairs. This Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities responsibility is not for it to provide a service. Those services are provided by the Department of Health, Department of Social Development, and other departments. And therefore, we must not mislead South Africans. Equally to that, I must indicate that the budget that is allocated to the department merely does not speak to the lived realities in which it needs to address. We look at their offices and you see that there is a deficiency. You look at the staff and human resource and you look at the deficiencies. Now, we will be implementing the Council on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide. This engine must work with all institutions to address issues of gender-based violence and femicide. Now we must say it is not only the responsibility of the agency or the council or the department, it is the responsibility of society as a whole. It is the responsibility of all departments. Lastly, Chairperson, I must indicate, for departments that are not willing to comply with requests that are made by this department in order for them to meet their constitutional mandate, must be held accountable. The issue before ngamba, nitata ngama travels none, we must understand that this department and the agency of NYDA, CGE and other institutions must go on international travels as part of our global and international obligations. And understand maybe, we do not live in isolation. We contribute towards the broader global goals that have been set out. It is not about luxury. It is about us contributing towards the entire vision. We will not be distracted by your noise. You've never led, you've never been in government. Without Ubaba, Siayazi, but they've messed up in government and they've all migrated. As we've said, the National Congress supports this budget. Therefore, we say, Pambili siyaya, remotengi, on says Bena, woza nawe.
Order, members. Order. Honorable Choke Adonis, your speech is finished. And on the left-hand side, order, please. The next speaker is Honorable the Minister of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities.
Chairperson, let me begin by expressing my sincere appreciation to all honorable members for your thoughtful and constructive contribution to this debate. Your insight strengthen and reaffirm our shared commitment. Of course, it's election year. I expected electioneering. But I want to assure the House that we are committed to transparency, hard work, and listening to your counsel as members of Parliament. Allow me just to say one or two things. First, it is true that we belong to the international world. The conventions that we sign and ratify, they force us to go to visit other countries. The CEDAW report that we're talking about, we'll have to take it to Geneva and present it ourselves in Geneva. The report that we submitted last year on Disability Convention will have to go and appear again in Geneva and present it as South Africa. That has to happen. We can't avoid it. If we don't, we will be charged by these committees. So I just want to say that. Honorable Kanyele, allow me again to say this. Indeed, I agree. Travel report, they are required, but they cannot be submitted by NYDA to Parliament. That will amount to overreaching. They account to the minister, and the minister, in terms of the constitution, accounts to Parliament. It's PFMA that calls on us to account, to talk about the accounting authority. But otherwise, they account to the minister. They can't submit their report here. I must submit or be called to account. And therefore, I think that cannot be actually implemented. I apologize for that. But also, let me say this. We're speaking about 18 million rand that we got from UK as a donation towards Gender-Based Violence and Femicide Response Fund. We're talking about the 2.5 million rand that we received from the All China Women. That is a donation to us, which we are going to spend. We're speaking about I'm the Code project, which will be launching in June this year. It's a massive project. It's the Code. It is a flagship intervention to train 600,000 young South Africans with critical STEM skills, AI coding, robotics. Upon completion of the training, they will be introduced into new ventures that is creating and supported by domestic and international strategic partners. We already have the Technology Innovation Agency that will provide early stage funding. We have the DMZ Toronto that will contribute proven global expertise. And the aim is to convert those young people that will be training, 600,000 of them, into people that are able to venture and into venture creators and in the digital economy. This is as a result of us going to New York with the NYDA chairperson. That is I am the Code, is 600,000 per person. It is worth, I think it's 900, whatever, US dollars, 9,000 US dollars. We're going to have this for free. It will be introduced in South Africa. The chairperson of the NYDA board was actually there and part of us negotiating. It cannot be that we can't see that. But of course, other benefits can't be coasted. You sit in South Africa, US somewhere there says South Africa must be excluded from the UN fund. But because we participate in these international bodies, some in our absence, they said it cannot be done. because we are part of that. So our intervention and our participation at international level can actually be costed, but sometimes you can't cost it. But it is so important. We cannot sit in South Africa and hope that things are going to happen. Also, on other achievements on our side, we have sent a circular to all departments and government departments at national and provincial to say this year the employment equity for disability is now at 5%. And this is what is happening. And we are engaging, we will be engaging the Auditor General so that it's part of what the Auditor General will be auditing departments, because we definitely want to see this being implemented. So there's a lot of work that we are doing. I agree with yourself, Honorable Megan, that the department is not funded properly. You can't have a youth branch, 13.3 million rand, 9 goes for salaries, and only 3.3 is for operations. What do you do with that 3.3 million rand? What do you do with that budget? And I want to ask the department, the portfolio committee, maybe to invite all of us so that we can come and account. I thank you very much.
Members are reminded that 2 debates are scheduled simultaneously for 2 o'clock today. The health budget vote number 18 debate will be held in the Good Hope Chamber, while the public works and infrastructure budget vote number 13 debate will take place in committee room M46. That concludes the debate and the business of this mini plenary session. The mini plenary will now rise.
Recording stopped.
Otherwise, this is a